Hello and welcome to the Introduction to Strengths Quest for college seminar students. At Mohawk Valley Community College, we believe that every student comes to us with the ability to succeed academically. By understanding the combination of unique talents that inform the natural ways that we think and feel, our students are able to unlock their potential. To this end, MVCC utilizes Gallup's Strengths Quest assessment to help them to better understand their strengths and to apply them to their lives with a philosophic foundation that is grounded in positive psychology. So take a few minutes and think about a time that you were at your best. Try to identify a specific situation in which you were most fulfilled and are performing at your best. You might think about a specific academic assignment, or perhaps helping someone solve a problem, or maybe even a performance you were a part of. Thinking back on this experience, try to identify why you felt great about it and write that down for yourself. We start with this activity to help us get in the mindset to think about our talents and strengths and how it feels when we use them in our lives. As I mentioned at the beginning, MVCC believes that all students already possess the ability to succeed academically. To help students tap into their talents and strengths, we use the Strengths Quest assessment, which is built on 40+ years of research by the Gallup organization. Gallup set out to understand excellence by studying what makes great people great: doctors, teachers, parents, and more. In studying excellence across numerous careers, they found that individuals who use their talents and strengths tend to be more successful and happier in their roles and work. This is a quote from a recent research that was done by Gallup. Individuals gain more when they build on their talents than when they make comparable efforts to improve their areas of weakness. Keep this in mind as we go through some of the activities today. To understand this a little better, please sign your name 5 times. Once you have finished that, switch the pen to the opposite hand and write your name with your non-dominant hand. In comparing the two results, for most of us, the first set looks much better, in addition to being easier to produce. For many of us, writing with our non-dominant hand requires more effort and doesn't produce as great results. This is a demonstration of what it's like to use our strengths to accomplish a task and to try to do the same task without relying on our strengths that we have. Speaking of talents and strengths, let's take a few minutes to distinguish between the two. Talents are the natural occurring ways of thinking, feeling, and behaving that we all have, whereas strengths are talents that we have developed to the point where we can use them when we want to in a controlled and productive fashion. If we think about this in terms of sports, a person may have a natural basketball talent. If he or she never practices, they may be good but never great at their sport. Now, if the same person practices and develops those natural talents into strengths, he or she might become a top-level player. Similarly, not everyone is going to be able to become a top-level player just by practicing, as it is the combination of natural talents and hard work or investment that is the key to developing a strength. Now, this doesn't mean that we don't have to work on things we're not good at. For example, if I struggle as a student in writing, it doesn't mean that I get to skip writing courses and assignments. Instead, it means that I should be using my talents and developed strengths to help me succeed in those assignments and courses. Therefore, my success as a student, a professional, or in my personal life probably has more to do with my approach and how I am leveraging my strengths. So as you learn more about your talents and these concepts, be thinking about how you can continue to develop them into strengths you can use when you need them. So we're now going to watch a clip from a longer video by Marcus Buckingham. He has been involved in research about strengths for many years at the Gallup organization and other places. And in this segment, be sure to listen to his definition of a strength and also what the clues are to identifying your own strengths.
You've noticed this? Isn't it funny how when you ask people to describe their weaknesses, they always manage to turn it around and make it sound like a strength? You know, the person says, my weakness is that I care too much. Or the girl who says, my weakness is that I'm just too much of a perfectionist. It is kind of funny how we do that, but I suppose it's understandable because we want to make ourselves look as good as we can to everybody else, right? What's much less easy to understand, though, is that when you ask people to describe their strengths, I mean, the very things that would make them look really good to everybody else, they wind up being so vague, so vanilla, so bland in describing their strengths. I mean, after a lifetime of interviewing people about their strengths, do you want to know the most common answer? Like if you were to bet money on what answer will I hear when I ask that person, this is the answer you'd make your money on. I like dealing with people. Yes, I do. People. No mention of which people, whether it's strangers or friends or colleagues or guests, it's just people. I like dealing with people. If you're going to get to be one of the 2 out of 10 that plays to their strengths most of the time, that takes control of their day, their hours, their minutes at work, then you got to become good. You got to get really good. You got to get very detailed, very specific at describing your own strengths. I mean, I like dealing with people. What is that? Which people? What are you doing with the people? Are you selling to them? Are you serving them? Are you taking care of them? Are you responding to their needs? If you like selling to them, are you selling to a lot of different people during the course of a day? Do you really like getting to know people who are strangers, winning them over, getting them to like you, then selling to them, then moving on like a retail environment? Or do you like building a really long-term, established, authentic relationship with someone and only then trying to persuade them to buy what you have to sell? Well, boy, those are 2 really different things. Or maybe you don't even like closing at all. You don't want to get a close. You just want to build influence. Well, which one of those applies to you? Or does neither apply to you? But if you're going to get to be one of the 2 out of 10, you've got to get to that level of detail, that level of granularity in describing your strengths. The good news is, I mean, daunting though that sounds, the good news is that isn't actually as hard as it seems. You don't need a psychologist or a manager or a teacher or an HR department even to tell you what your strengths are. You can do this because your strengths have certain signs to them, certain sort of telltale signs, characteristics. And if you look back at your week, last week at work, and you try and look for those signs, you'll be able to filter them out and I think be able to see from those signs what your true, most dominant, most powerful strengths are. Here's the first sign, and it's an obvious one, but pay attention to it. Your strengths have a yearning quality to them. They're like a force inside you trying to get out. So watch to see which activities last week did you look forward to doing? Which activities did you find yourself volunteering for? Now, there may not be that many of them because you did a lot of stuff last week, but see whether you can pull the curtain aside a wee bit and look for which were those activities you actually look forward to doing. Here's a second sign. Your strengths are those things you're naturally inquisitive about, right? When you start doing an activity that's around a strength of yours, you don't struggle to concentrate, do you? Your mind doesn't wander. You're like in the moment. You're in the zone. You're focused. You're concentrated. Time just sort of zips by and you look up and like a whole hour's gone by. Okay, what were those activities last week? Were there any activities that you stay inquisitive around, that you keep learning around, that you keep researching around? Those are all great signs of a strength. And then last, your strengths have this restorative quality to them, don't they? When you're done with them, you may be physically tired, but you're not psychologically drained. You're not empty. You're not depleted. You're actually uplifted. You're sustained. They fulfill you. That's actually why you want to do them again, because you want that feeling again. Okay, look for those activities. Were there any activities last week that left you feeling kind of magnificent? What were they? Look back for those 3 clues. Which activities did you look forward to? Which activities did you stay inquisitive around and in the moment? And which activities left you feeling strong and magnificent? You see anything? Really, try it. Just look back. Do you see anything emerging? Any activities? Any patterns there last week where you can see some of those signs? When I do that, 3 things come to mind for me. 3 strengths sort of come to the fore. First, I interviewed a really good housekeeping supervisor. She's got 13 housekeepers she manages, and she's brilliant at it. I love doing that, interviewing anybody who's really good at their job about why they're good. Second, I gave a presentation when I'd prepared. I'm not good and I don't like giving presentations when I haven't. I need to know my stuff, get prepared. And if I've done that, then I kind of like giving a presentation. And then third, I read an article, took notes on an article about the New Zealand rugby team, which, would you believe, is, and always has been, the best rugby team in the world. Which is kind of weird, because There's only 3 million people on those islands. There's more sheep than New Zealanders, and yet somehow they always wind up beating teams from countries, 10 times their size. Love doing that, interviewing and studying and reading up on organizational excellence, particularly mysterious organizational excellence like that. Picking out activities like that, for me, is really important work, because those 3 activities, interviewing someone who's excellent at their job, giving a presentation when I'm prepared, and researching organizational success, those 3 things are strengths of mine. Now, in saying that, I'm not saying I'm good at them. I mean, I'm not bad at them, but I'm not great at them. I mean, with each of them, I have huge room to grow, huge improvement that's got to be made in each one of those. All I'm saying is those 3 activities, those 3 very specific activities, make me feel strong. And that's the best definition of a strength, for you as well as for me, for everybody. A strength is an activity that makes you feel strong. I mean, I know that's going to sound odd to you because you've been raised, like I've been raised, to believe that your strengths are things you're good at, your weaknesses are things you're bad at. And it's not like that definition's wrong, it's just not enough. A strength isn't just what you're good at. It's like the definition is incomplete, and it leaves out all the stuff that you really want to know about, all the really interesting stuff. You don't want to know what you're good at or what you're bad at. That's an outcome. It's happened, it's over, it's the past. You don't want to know about the past. You want to know about the future, don't you? I mean, you've got questions about the future. You want to know which strengths can you turn to when you've had a bad day so that they can build you back up. You want to know which strengths you can count on to really deliver for you regardless of the situation or the circumstances. You want to know which strengths you're going to get better and better and better at as you invest more training and time in them. You want to know which strengths you're going to be most creative in, have the better ideas in. Basically, you want to know which strengths are going to sustain you and fulfill you as you march on through life. And that old definition of a strength as stuff you're good at is just a really bad guide to those questions about the future. That definition tells you that in order to know how to plan your future and focus your future, you should look to those activities you're good at. But can that be true? I mean, don't you have some activities you're good at, but which leave you empty, cold, or they even actually deplete you? Like you may be really good at organizing stuff, just brilliant at arranging everything, getting all perfectly in its place, but it leaves you empty. After 2 days of arranging and organizing, you feel this close to bursting into tears. Well, if you have some activity like that, should I tell you that organizing is your future? Organizing stuff is what you should build your career around? Of course I wouldn't. No, the best definition of a strength is an activity that leaves you feeling strong. Because if you think about it, I don't know what your goals are, I don't know what your dreams are, but surely one of the objectives of your life is to make the biggest contribution for the longest period of time. Well, if you're going to do that, whatever field you've chosen, if you're going to do that, you've got to base that contribution on activities themselves that strengthen you. Whatever you're doing at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday morning or 2 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon, whatever that is has got to strengthen you. The activity itself has got to do that. I don't care how cool your company is that you've joined, or how sexy your job title is, or how noble your sense of mission is. If the activity itself doesn't strengthen you, you've got a problem. We're gonna see you burn out way before we see the best of you. Now you flip that around. If you deliberately try and install in your working week activities that strengthen you, all kinds of good things happen for you. You'll find that you'll bounce back more quickly. You'll be more resilient when things set you back. You'll find you'll be able to stay focused longer. You'll find you'll be more creative. You'll find you'll set higher goals. And of course, the really relevant thing, you'll wind up achieving those goals more often. Why? Get your head around this, because you will get good at things you practice. But you don't practice all activities uniformly, do you? You get drawn into some activities and repelled by others. And those you get drawn into, you practice more, and you practice more, and you get better and better at them. So you need to pay really close attention to your appetites, because your appetites, those activities you're drawn to that fulfill you, those appetites drive your abilities. You need to pay attention to how you feel while you're doing something, because how you feel while you're doing something will determine how good you get at that thing. And what about those activities that you're drawn to, but you just don't seem to get any better at? We've all got those, don't we? Activities that you have a lot of appetite for and seemingly no ability. Well, we have a word for those activities, don't we? We have a word for all appetite, no ability kind of activities. We call them hobbies. And they stay hobbies because no one's paying us to do them. I mean, I can have the luxury of still going around and hacking away with my golf swing, or the luxury of messing with my forehand, or singing gloriously in the shower, and I don't have to worry that I have really no ability for them because no one's paying me to do them. But it's amazing how quickly, when we go back into the real world, back into the world of work and wages and accountability and performance, it's amazing how quickly we dismiss that as a luxury. It's amazing how back in the real world, very few people maintain a strong appetite for an activity that they manifestly have no ability for. But you know the really brilliant news about defining a strength as an activity that makes you feel strong? Is that the person who's best qualified to identify your strengths, really the only person qualified to identify your strengths, is you. With the old definition, an activity you're good at, well, really the least qualified person to identify your strengths is you. Because you'd either be too hard on yourself or too generous with yourself, depending on how fragile your ego was. So right from a very early age, you were taught to look to somebody else, somebody outside of you, to confirm or deny what your strengths were. At school, you looked to your teachers, didn't you? At home, you looked to your parents. At work, you were taught to look to your manager and your HR department and that child of theirs, the performance appraisal. But with this new definition of a strength as an activity that makes you feel strong, you don't have to look to anyone else. You know better than anyone else does which activities you're drawn to and which repel you. You know which activities fascinate you and which bore you. You know which activities fulfill you and which leave you feeling cold. You know better than anyone else does if you feel fulfilled and excited meeting new people and winning them over and getting them to like you. If you say you love that, no one can say, no, you don't. They can say, you know what, there's better ways of doing that. They can say, here's a really nifty new way of networking with people. They can even say, hey, look, Marcus, you know what? Sometimes your need to get people to like you and your ability to do that gets in the way of making a sale, or gets in the way of serving a customer, or some other such outcome. And that's okay. You should keep your mind open for feedback like that. That is totally legitimate performance feedback. But what no one can tell you better than you is which activities you love and which you loathe. No one can tell you which activities make you feel strong and which make you feel weak, which fascinate you and which bore you to tears. Here, your perspective is, and will always be, sure and true. So trust it. Look back at your activities last week. Look for those telltale signs of a strength. Reclaim them. No one knows them better than you.
As Marcus explained, you are always going to know yourself better than a professor or manager or computer assessment when it comes to identifying what makes you feel strong and what you get energy from doing. We use the assessment as a starting point and to give us all a similar language from which to talk about strengths on our campus. So at this point, I'd like you to review your signature theme report. Read the description for each of your top 5 talents, underline phrases that jump out to you as sounding right, and then rewrite these descriptions in your own words. As the descriptions in your report are generic to anyone with this theme, rather than being specific to you, you will find that some parts may fit and other parts might not. The goal is for you to decide, as an expert on you, and write your own definition that speaks to what this theme might look like in your life. Once you have finished reviewing your report, I'd encourage you to share it with someone who knows you well, as those around us often have the ability to easily see what makes us unique and help us to see it as well. It's also a good idea to identify a time you've recently used each of your talents. Being as specific as possible is the goal. So instead of saying, I use it at work, you want to identify a specific situation. Maybe yesterday afternoon you used it while helping to solve a conflict with a customer. When we look back and see how frequently those talents come up in our lives, we will become more aware of them, and moving forward, we'll be able to recognize them, which is a key part of developing them into strengths. And finally, when you think about developing your talents into strengths, think about how practicing them just like a basketball player might practice dribbling or shooting. Your everyday life can be the drills for how you develop and hone your strengths. There are additional resources available for you on the Strengths Quest website where you took the assessment originally, and also on the MVCC Strengths Quest website, which is www.mvcc.edu/strengths. Thank you for your time and good luck with your strengths development and academic goals this semester.